Hello and good evening. I hope everyone is having a great start to the new year. First of all, I would like to thank Irini Vantaraki and Emmanuel Spanudis for this wonderful opportunity to be part of Davos Lodge. The Stimson Center and I are deeply grateful for the invitation to participate. I'm delighted and honored to speak on tensions and lay the groundwork for more formal government-level negotiations. Whether focusing on U.S.-China relations, disputes in the Middle East, or global governance reforms, Stimson's goal is to craft practical strategies that reduce risks, build trust, and serve the common good. Through its research programs on nuclear security, humanitarian engineering, and environmental resilience, among others, the Stimson Center has become a trusted partner in crafting innovative policy solutions. We believe that addressing 21st century challenges requires fresh thinking, cross-sector collaboration, and a willingness to confront complexity head-on. I believe many would agree we have not seen a world more defined by uncertainty in a long time. The late Dr. Henry Kissinger once remarked that Mr. Donald Trump may be the kind of historical figure who marks the end of an era, forcing us to abandon our old pretenses. Whether one agrees with Secretary Kissinger or not, his observation speaks to broader systemic shifts that have been building up, both in the United States and around the globe. Large swaths of the electorate in the West want systemic change, at home and abroad, indicating we might be standing on the cusp of major historical change. In this moment of interregnum, when the old era is waning and a new one has yet to be shaped, we face an important question. Will this upcoming period lead to a more positive cooperative world order, or a more fractured one? One dimension of this shift is what analysts call deglobalization. The industrial and manufacturing foundations that once sustained entire communities and enabled a middle-class life have eroded under the pressures of global supply chains, lower labor costs abroad, and the never-ending pursuit of efficiency. While these trends did, in fact, lower consumer prices and often certain economic advantages, many felt and continue to feel left behind. Stagnant wages, job losses, and the decline of local industries have driven a visceral dissatisfaction toward those in power, both in Washington as well as in European capitals, and the broader rules of globalization. This dissatisfaction has led to a corrective force in politics, often labeled populism, but more accurately understood as a public demand for redressing inequities. Simultaneously, America's global commitments have ballooned for what many perceive as diminishing returns at home. As the United States redefines its role in the world, tensions between pursuing domestic prosperity and maintaining a strong international footprint will only become more pronounced. Balancing trade protection, currency strength, and leadership in global institutions requires navigating deep contradictions. Populism is frequently described as a backlash against elites, but at its core lies a collapse in trust, particularly trust in democratic institutions. Studies reveal that people who lose faith in government, the judiciary, and mainstream political parties are more inclined to support leaders with populist rhetoric. The question then is, why has this faith eroded so broadly across Western democracies? Several factors come to mind. First, large-scale, unorganized immigration has fueled perceptions of lawlessness and cultural change that many communities find unsettling. Second, the transformation from production-based to service-based economies has left rural and industrial regions struggling. Third, for example, the so-called American dream, the belief that each generation would be wealthier and more secure than the last, feels increasingly out of reach for many. The Economist notes that it is now more likely for young people in the U.S. to be worse off economically than their parents. Adding to these pressures, technology continues to reshape the job market at a blistering pace, and experts predict that a large portion of white-collar work could soon be automated too. A major feature of the global scene is the re-emergence of great power competition, especially between the United States and China. After the Cold War, American supremacy was unquestioned in areas like technology, military force, and cultural influence. Today, China has risen not just as a military competitor, but also as an economic powerhouse. This is bodies were largely shaped in the post-World War II era and do not reflect today's distribution of power. Chinese officials often note that, although Chinese occupies a seat at the top table, the casino is still owned by those who designed the game decades ago. As Beijing becomes more influential, it seeks to create parallel institutions or reshape existing ones. A reformed global governance system, one that includes all key stakeholders and manages competition responsibly, remains essential to preventing conflict. Disinformation and the rapid evolution of technology have blurred the line between fact and fiction. Americans and global citizens increasingly operate in siloed media ecosystems where alternative facts gain traction and social media algorithms reward outrage. Advances in artificial intelligence, deepfake videos and audio may soon become indistinguishable from reality, further undermining social cohesion and our shared concept of truth. The race between malicious actors and those seeking to harness technology for good will only intensify. I'd like to mention several regional flashpoints to illustrate broader systemic challenges too. The Middle East has undergone seismic shifts from the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria to the evolving Israeli-Arab normalization efforts. Iran faces internal pressures and new fault lines could erupt into more dangerous conflicts. Traditional tools such as maximalist pressure on Iran may only fan the flames. Ukraine. A potential end to the grinding war in Ukraine looms, but it comes with high stakes. U.S. domestic opposition to continued support is growing, which might push both Kyiv and Moscow to the negotiating table. Yet, the risk remains that Ukraine could be pressed into territorial concessions, or that no ceasefire is reached and the conflict escalates, leaving Europe to shoulder the burden. China and Taiwan. Despite a steady state approach under the previous administration, balancing, sanctioning, and negotiating with Beijing, the hawkish tendency in Washington persists. A move from de-risking to decoupling seems likely, raising the specter of an all-out economic war that could include tariffs, sanctions, and controls on strategic exports. Though President Trump remains a wild card, he could also turn the tables completely and move towards a renewed partnership with Beijing. Failing states and Africa's lost decade. Over 3 billion people live in states that spend more on debt servicing than on health and education. Climate-induced disasters and higher global interest rates could worsen this debt crisis. Fragile states like Nigeria and Pakistan, both pivotal middle powers, face precarious futures. A nuclear-armed Pakistan teetering toward collapse, for instance, would have far-reaching implications for global security. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. Recent years have been the hottest on record, surpassing 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. While the planet has experienced warmer phases in the distant past, our modern infrastructure and population distribution along coastal areas amplify the risks. As storms intensify, droughts lengthen, and floods devastate entire regions, the questions become, how can societies adapt quickly enough to avert catastrophe? And how can global governance rise to the challenge when short? To learn more, please visit our website, stimson.org, and I will be happy to answer any questions afterwards and share my contact details with you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I sincerely appreciate your interest and participation. Together we can forge a world that benefits us all. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to my Stimson Center friend and colleague, Navard Chalikian. Navard Chalikian is a non-resident fellow at the Stimson Center and a specialist in international relations. She is also a research fellow at the Applied Policy Research Institute, APRI, based in Armenia. Navard's area of expertise are U.S.-Russia relations, geopolitics of the South Caucasus, and India-Armenia relations. At the Stimson Center, she researches Russia's foreign policy and has been involved in Track 2 dialogues aimed at finding solutions to global challenges. Navard holds a master's of philosophy and politics and international studies from the University of Cambridge. She also has an MA in political science from the American University of Armenia. Again, thank you, everyone. Navard, the floor is yours now.